What do you do when you start feeling like life is not worth living? You get help. You get help immediately. Immediately. You find family members, friends, a hotline, whatever you need, so that you have the time to relearn how worth living life is. Because the dilemma, the tragic dilemma with decisions like suicide is we don't actually allow ourselves the time to see things in a different way. It's like deciding at midnight that you've waited long enough for the sun to rise. Or waiting a little longer, but deciding at 3, fine, forget it, I held on till 3 o'clock. I've waited for the sun to rise, forget it, there is no sun coming. I'm going to end it. What you need at that time is someone who can just sit with you for another few hours until the sun actually rises. Sometimes it's, in the case of deep depression, it can be days. It can be weeks. It can be months. But we absolutely have to find a way to hold on, knowing that there will come a time, whether it's hours, days, weeks, or months later, in which we say, thank God. Thank God I am still here. Thank God that person, that phone call, that hotline number, thank God for this, for that, whatever it may be. Because, oh my God, if I had gone through with it, I wouldn't be here to experience this. The vast majority of us, many more than you would think, go through moments in our life in which we feel like, what is the point of it all? We may not all necessarily really seriously contemplate suicide, but a lot of us do. A very large percent of people actually seriously contemplate suicide. Because there are times in our life when it just seems like that sun is never going to rise. Nothing's going to change. But the nature of nature is it always changes. That is the nature of creation. It always changes. That's good when things are really bad. It's not so good when things are really good. But whatever moment we are in, that saying of this too shall pass is really true. The situations, the circumstances, the things in our world are in constant flux. And so if the sense of life is not worth living, there's two main directions it comes from. One direction is outside, one direction is inside. And so at the risk of oversimplifying, the first group is life isn't worth living because I will never get out of this situation. I am in a family situation, a work situation, a financial situation, a cultural situation, whatever it may be, that is unbearable to me. And that I will, in my mind, I will never get out of it, will never change. What I can tell you is it will always change. Because things always change. But also to recognize that there may be a power you have to change an external situation that you don't realize you have. There's a beautiful story of a little boy who's playing in a sandbox in his front yard. And somehow this massive rock has landed up in his sandbox, and he's very upset by it because this rock is big and it's taking up a lot of his sandbox and it's not allowing him to properly play. And he keeps trying to lift up the rock, but he can't. And his dad is watching him from the upstairs window, just watching his child. And the poor boy keeps trying to move the rock, but the kid is tiny, the rock is big. And he tries to push it and pull it and lift it, and the thing just doesn't budge. And finally, the boy just breaks down sobbing. At which point his dad, of course, comes down and picks him up and says, "What's the problem?" And the boy says, "There is absolutely no way to move this rock." And the dad says to him, "Have you used all of your resources? Have you used everything you have?" And the boy says, "Yes, I have." And his dad says, "You haven't used me." And the dad bends down and he picks up the rock and moves it out of the sandbox. And I love that story because it reminds us of the miraculous power of the universe. And whether we say God in a particular name or form, or just spirit, or just divinity, or just power, energy, whatever word we use, to say there is no way out of this situation is to deny both my own power, because, for example, even if the boy didn't have a father, okay, he might not be able to move the rock today, but give the kid a few months, maybe a couple years, and he'd be able to lift it himself. So even left only to his own devices, if he actually waited long enough, he personally would be able to remove the rock. But in the meantime, he also had other resources. And so when things outside of us seem insurmountable, that they make life not worth living, it means that we're not realizing, number one, the real power we have. And we may not be able to access it in this exact moment, but we will soon if we put our minds to it, fearlessly. It sometimes takes courage. I mean, you take, for example, the example of a woman being abused by her husband. It's a common example. Many women feel, I'll never get out of this. They don't have the resources. Maybe they don't even have the money to support themselves. And so maybe immediately they don't have the resources. But for example, one of the things that we are doing, that our organization does, is help women learn skills to give themselves the opportunity to get out of situations like that and still be able to support themselves and their children. But even otherwise, there's organizations that help. I mean, it's just an example, but she has a lot of resources. If she can get over the fear of what's going to happen to me if I leave this situation. So that's as far as external situations. Either have faith they will change on their own because it's the nature of nature, or realize that there is a power within you, or a power in God, in the universe, that isn't yet fully tapped to help change that situation. But then the other reason that a lot of times people feel like there's no point, is from an internal situation. They feel, I will never feel happiness. This depression, this anxiety, this addiction will never leave me. And therefore, life is not worth living. And those are indications that you really, really, really need to reach out your arms and get help. Because there is help. Whatever the internal situation may be, I guarantee you, there is help, there is hope. And I say this to you as someone who herself has suffered internally, has suffered externally, has had thoughts of ending it all. And I now think back and I think, oh my God, can you imagine if I had done that? Can you imagine if at 19, 20, 21, when I was having those thoughts, if I actually had thought that was all my life was going to be? I'm so grateful to the divine every day that I was able to be pulled out of it. And there's no one I know, and I know a lot of people who have struggled with both external situations and internal situations that seemed insurmountable and have thought about actually ending it all. And there's no one I know, not even one situation ever I have experienced, where someone says, God, I wish that I had taken my life when I had a chance. I wish that I had ended it all. 100% of them, every single one, always says, oh my God, thank God I didn't do it. So you have to hang on, and you have to get help. Do not think it's up to you. If you've got family, friends you can reach out to, great. If not, we are here. There are hotlines. I mean, wherever people are watching this from in the world, there's so many resources and people who are there to catch you. Your life is a precious gift, given not by mistake, by the divine. And of course, as we believe very deeply in karma and reincarnation, if you end it now, you just have to come back and do it all over again. So you're not actually getting out of anything. You're not actually making things any better. All you're doing is making them worse, because you're just going to come back and have to relearn exactly the same lessons, but now with the additional added karmic baggage of having thrown away the preciousness of your life. So hold on to it. It's the most precious gift in the world. Yours very specifically.